My name is John Keegan, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is another man I had the privilege of filming about 8, 9 years ago. Dublin Des. And very sadly, we lost him about a year ago. Such a nice man, such a lot to offer. But at least we can offer the legacy he's left behind. He's left us this audio and DVD that I know will help people now and in the future. So rest easy, Des, you're still doing the business. I'll hand you over to the man himself, Dublin Des. Thank you.
Right, Des is my name and I'm an alcoholic, and it's nice to be here in front of the camera for the first time. To me, an alcoholic is a word, and what is important is what it means to me, and I suppose that has changed. The fact that I can't drink hasn't changed, but when I went to AA first, when I said I was an alcoholic, it meant I had wicked hangovers, that I crashed cars through drink. I was in court for being drunk and disorderly, and that's about all it meant. I didn't want to get away from all that, but I suppose today it means an awful lot more, simply because I learned a lot more about the disease I have, and I knew after 4 years, 12 steps, I knew if you're an alcoholic, you're abnormal. And I used to say to myself, I'm probably an alcoholic, or I am an alcoholic, but where am I abnormal? To be abnormal has to be an awful lot wrong with you. But today I freely admit I was abnormal, because this realization came over me that all my attitudes was wrong, and my ideas was wrong, and my approach to life was wrong, attitudes was wrong, perception was way off. So when I added it up, there was an awful lot wrong with me. And but I was told, when you go to AA first, you have to have a blind faith. You have to do certain things before, other certain things will happen. And I was prepared for all that. But I suppose the only thing what I would have loved when I went to AA first was for somebody to just prove to me you're an alcoholic. Because it was part of me saying, there's not much wrong with me. I'm hardly bad enough for AA. And there was another part of me saying, I'm too bad for AA. I knew there was something wrong with me, but was it this disease? I was confident if I was just an alcoholic, all would be well. But I remember the first time it was read out, there are those who have grave emotional and mental disorders. And that sort of gave me hope, because I couldn't say what was wrong with me. And I didn't know it was just, I suppose why I felt so bad, again, the chap at 12 Step, he said it to me. He says, meetings are for coping with life off the booze. Well, of course, I couldn't cope with life on it, but I didn't know that. And I think that's a marvellous thing about AA. If you never knew what normal was, you will learn in AA, and I don't think I did, because I was born into an alcoholic home. I worked in the pubs for years. Everyone at Panorama drank heavy. So I suppose I picked the people where I could fit in best with, and who were they? Only probably problem drinkers and alcoholics like myself. So normal people who were sort of getting married and ambitious and going abroad on holidays and had new cars and all that, they were the misfits in my eye. And I learned, I viewed life from the standpoint as a victim. I'm hard done by, I'm entitled to be this way. Sort of that's I suppose the disease, the negativeness, and looking back, I think I did crave to be positive, but at the time I didn't know the difference between negative and positive. And I'm still, I suppose, I try to be as positive as I can because it's a positive program. And, I don't feel this hard done by now. If I'm broke, it's because I'm not working, not putting the effort into it. There's millions like me. So I'm just I always felt, this underprivileged person, which I can't today. And I spoke to this member probably 4 or 5 times a day for 4 years or 5 years before I come to this fellowship. So he didn't say he knew what an alcoholic was, but he did give me a good sort of idea of what an alcoholic was. Like he said things like an alcoholic is a very negative type of person. It's the type of person, if you said to them, it's a nice day today, they would probably say back, it is, but it'll be raining tomorrow. And the pride and the fear in putting things off and all this. And I found it very interesting simply because I had my father sort of that sussed out. I had the older brother, I had the neighbours. The people I couldn't figure out, I could never understand why they never got on. But of course the missing link was, I suppose, addiction. They were all hooked on beer. And I found it very, very interesting. But I didn't find it interesting when the realisation came over me that I was as bad as they were and that I was an alcoholic. And the last thing I wanted to be was an alcoholic. I had a gambling problem as well, but I wasn't shy about sharing that, but the last thing I would share with anyone was I was an alcoholic. But indeed, that's long gone. It's a nice word to me, really, for some reason. Not that there's anything to boast about. I'm not boasting about being an alcoholic. But I suppose I feel fortunate in the sense that it's 100% arrestable. And I look upon it, the wisest one is the one who was insane and was restored to sanity. It's like I have a good idea how a lot of people living in the park feels, why people cop out, why people crank up. And although officially I was never in a mental institution, for years and years I lived on the verge of having a breakdown, and I say it's simply because I couldn't cope and did not know it. I had not a clue what was wrong. But I did know I was a sort of an oddball because, when people talked about Beatlemania and flower power and all this, I had not a clue what they were talking about. And I knew everyone else had. And I did know at times that there was something radically wrong with me. But then again, I couldn't come to terms with it anyway. And so it was 4 years, being 12 steps, so the chap at 12 stepped me, he says, why don't you try controlled drinking? I said, I'll do that and I'll prove that I'm not an alcoholic, at least I can drink then in peace. But of course that was the best thing I ever done, and I really tried to control it. It's then I knew I was completely out of control, that I couldn't. And it was November or December. Christmas was only around the corner, and I knew I'd lost control. And I had turned over 2 cars previously, and I was very lucky. I knew I was lucky. I didn't kill anybody. I could have. But I knew if I'd done it now with all this knowledge, I'd really be a murderer. And I never liked guilt. I could live with anything bar guilt. So I went to AA. It was November or December. Christmas was only around the corner. And that had a bearing on it. Plus the fact I knew I couldn't control it. Plus the fact I was sick of hangovers. So I said I'd go anyway. If I go there, I didn't take it lightly. I said I won't drink. I believed them it would work for me. And at least I'll have no hangovers. I won't be peeping out the window in the morning and hoping the car is there and I'm wondering if I crashed or I killed someone. So I thought that in itself would be worthwhile. But indeed I went, and the only thing was against me when I went first. I said there's this part of me feeling I wasn't bad enough, and there's other part of me feeling too bad. And I hung on in anyway, and I didn't want to drink, but I got over Christmas, I didn't drink. And I made a conscious decision not to go to AA. And something happened to me I didn't think possible. Although I didn't drink, I felt worse than ever. And I remember one Friday evening saying, I'm going back to AA next Monday and I'm staying, whether I'm an alcoholic or not. And I did. But then it got easier because the longer I stayed, the more I learned what was wrong with me, which made it easier for me. I mean, I wasn't too long in AA when I heard someone saying about contented sobriety, and it clicked with me. You know, I'm here and I don't want to be anywhere else. And I think that was the first time in my life I experienced contentment. Because like I said, when I was drinking, if it was in one pub, it was all happening in another pub. If it was Christmas time or winter time, I wish it was summertime. If it was summertime, I wish it was winter time. I was very, very discontented and unhappy. But so I was experiencing contentment, and that was worthwhile staying for. And I wasn't too long in AA, and like I say, this realization came over me about all my attitudes and my outlook and my perception of life, and the whole lot was wrong. So that made it easier for me. I think what I'm trying to say is, had anyone have been able to prove to me at any time that you're an alcoholic, it would have been enough reason for me to stop and go to AA. But it's not that type of a disease. You have to diagnose yourself. And I'm grateful. I mean, a 4-year being 12-step, I think I hadn't got to go out a second time. It was November, December '83, and I never had to go for a convincer. I never drank from that day to this. And I like the way members put it. They said they never had to drink, and that's the way I look at it. Because I had to drink all my life. And remember saying to me, you know, we're compulsive people. He says, if you look up compulsive in the dictionary, it says it leads you. And I thought long and hard about that, and it did, because it determined the people I was with and what I'd done, and it just determined my whole life. And I didn't like anything about my life. There's nothing left to salvage. When I came to AA, I had no euphoric recall. I still haven't. There's nothing there for me in booze at all. But I heard someone saying, you know, they drank because they were alcoholic, and they stopped because they accepted it. And that sums it up for me. Some liked the taste and some didn't. So I didn't, I was one of these I didn't agree with at all. But I drank for 15 years, and I drank with heavy drinkers, and even if my stomach was upset, I would have to go and get a sandwich, get fish and chips, eat something to try and keep up with them. It never once dawned on me that I should say, no, I've enough, I can't drink anymore. I was just under this obligation to drink, and indeed I learned a long time ago that's not normal, you know. I was never a happy drinker, but when I went to AA, I did take to the 12 by 12. The big book didn't appeal to me, but the steps did for some unknown reason. Or looking back, it was sort of motivation for me. And I can remember when I went back to, after some short time in AA, I remember God coming back in my life, sort of as a feeling, and there's new meaning come into my life. I remember God going out of my life. He went out of it when I was about 14. I started working in a pub and I started handing up money at home. I remember making this decision, I wouldn't go to confessions anymore. And my parents couldn't make me because I was handing up money. And I remember, even though I didn't drink till I was 18 or 19, that you know, God going out of my life, and I sort of left me with an empty feeling or no purpose in life. And something I read in recovery, it meant a lot to me. It said, meaning generates energy, but lack of meaning leads to depression. And that meant a lot, because I was about 9 months in recovery, and this depression depression was coming and going. And it was one day I went home at lunchtime, and this black cloud came over me, and I was after getting the 24 hours a day book, and at the bottom of one page it said, "By not trusting God you are disowning him, but if you trusted him all would be well." And I got down on my hands and knees at the bed, and I remember that day, I suppose really what I was doing, I handed over. I said, no matter how hopeless the situation looks, my life is in your hands now. I suppose it was a step 3, but I didn't see it that way at the time. I had to do it to get outside the door. If I didn't do that, I knew I could hop into bed and cover my head, and I'd have an awful job getting out of it again. But that was a milestone in my recovery, because the depression lifted, never ever come back. So I suppose God came into my life again, I suppose. But the praying and all that, there was a lot of that in our house. It done me no good. Confessions never done me any good. Probably because I was diseased, and maybe what I'm saying is like that AA, being an alcoholic is a very specific disease with a very specific way of arresting it, and of course meetings and the program is the specific way of arresting it as far as I'm concerned. It's just tailor-made. Sharing with mainly one other member, I think, ridded me of the guilt. Made me, I suppose he made me realise that I had no say in the life that I led. But I suppose at the same time I had to take responsibility for any wrongdoings. But it was, I was awfully confused, and I never really knew what I wanted, and I could never have got what I wanted out of life because I didn't know what I wanted out of life. I think the only thing I knew about myself was that I was very discontented. And I reversed that, I think, because in this short time in AA, I did realise what I wanted out of life to a large extent, and I also knew if I didn't get it, I could enjoy trying. And it's something I learned about recovery. I say it's a very lenient program because you've only to do the best you can. If you're having a good day, do the best you can. If you're having a bad day, do the best you can. And it's always good enough. That's what I found. That's why I say it's a lenient program. And I've always said, and I only speak for myself, and I say this, if it was hard, I couldn't do it. And maybe I would give a lot of credit to the chap at 12 Step. I was told it was a program of surrender. And there's awful wisdom in that big book, as one bit says, where to adjust to what is. That is a very, very big statement as far as I'm concerned, because coming from an alcoholic home and knowing alcoholics, everything is wrong with them and wanting this changed and that changed and the other changed. And someone said, or maybe I read it somewhere, a spiritual person will say everything is as it should be. And that's the marvellous thing about that is it made me aware of what I have to aim for. Everything is grand, and make the best of it. And that's the tall orders, but I suppose there's magic in trying in this program. And when I went to AA first, I could accept my constitution wasn't able to cope with alcohol, but I wasn't able to accept that mentally there was something wrong with me. And I listened to other members sharing about insanity. To me, they seemed to be boasting about it. So that gave me a chance to talk a little bit about my insanity. And eventually, my insanity now, defects, shortcomings, assets, they're all just part of me now. There's no big deal about it at all. And the insanity is the important part of it now, because I'm in AA because I have an insane disease. If I hadn't got the disease, I'd be able to drink like a gentleman. But I have the disease, so It doesn't, alcohol and my disease won't mix without disastrous consequences. So I sort of, I can accept my insanity, I can accept defects. I suppose really I can accept myself now, warts and all, which took a long time. But again, that's the marvellous thing about the programme. You're going to get better, you can take it piecemeal. And when I went to AA first, it was a great one for asking questions. And I remember asking this member, you know, about this word projecting. And I didn't know what it meant. So he says to me, well, you can say you're buying a new pair of shoes next Saturday, and that's planning. But if you feel them hurting you, that's projecting. And I could identify with that. They say if an alcoholic looks at the past, all he'll have is guilt. If he looks at the future, all he'll have is fear. So it does say a day at a time, live in the day. And something, you know, I hadn't to do that often, being when things got rough. Yes, I had to keep her in the day. For instance, I was 2.5 years sober when I left home, left Dublin and came to London. And I was on my own for the first time, and that was a milestone in my life, because it's only then I realised how inadequate I was. It was only then I realised what I was told, that an alcoholic is as helpless as a year-old baby. You know, when I was taken out of my usual environment where I knew everyone. And I remember asking myself, or thinking about this member, when I asked him one time, how did you think I'd get on in London? He said, you'll be all right because you know yourself. And I was saying, this there is screwed up. What does he mean by that? And then it clicked with me, you know, this is how, you know, the insecurity affected me. When I was taken out away from everyone I knew, and I wasn't living at home for the mother to look after me, you know, I felt bad and I was screwed up. But I had the wisdom to know to go to plenty of meetings. I needed them. And when I seen what was bothering me and what I seen, I just had to sort of stay on my own a day and keep it in the day. That time I did have to keep it in the day. And it passed, and then I felt really very, very good about it. I felt like I conquered myself. I went a long way in conquering myself. And because nothing yet was ever as bad after. And I mean, the effect it had on me that, you know, I always wanted to feel good and that. But after that, you know, I wasn't afraid of my feelings. I had no fear of getting fear. I wasn't worried about being worried. But of course, if I had a chance, I'd feel good all the time. But certainly aware that that's not possible. And something, you hear different things at different meetings. There was a great saying at meetings in Dublin that feelings won't kill you. And that's something I always latched onto, you know, because they didn't. Bad feelings, but well, if you drank on them, they would, but you don't have to. The feelings will pass, and they might affect your perception of a problem in life and all that, but it's not very accurate, you know. I like what it says in the big book about pride and fear. That's what makes it hard, but it does say they turn out to be bogeymen. So that's what I honestly believe. I done nothing hard in recovery, but pride and fear made it hard. So if I got rid of the pride and the fear, no, I didn't do anything hard in recovery. And I suppose the choice is, to a large extent, it's up to me. I can use the meetings, I can use other members, well I did, and that's the easy way out, you know. But no matter what you do, I think it's getting sober, it's a process. I mean, it's not an event. And I come to meetings, I don't come to die sober, but I come to live happy. It's all in the now, or largely in the now. I've learned that from AA, you know. tomorrow, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I've good hope. And that's something I hadn't got, and I even looked hope up in the dictionary, and it said expectation and desire. And that was a revelation to me, because the way I lived was, I lived in despair that things is bad and they're going to get worse. I figured I would never be disappointed that way, and I wasn't. But the trouble was, the smallest problem you get would get you down. But I realised if you had hope, you could cope with practically anything. There's no problem would get me down. So this sort of faith, hope and charity became, to me, it's really sums up spirituality to it. It's an awful lot to do with spirituality anyway. And you heard different definitions of spirituality which I liked. One was, you know, if you're spiritually well, you can be of service to people and be able to have relationships with people, and I like that one. Some other member said, you know, when you're spiritually well, you know, you can accept reality, and I think that's very true as well. So I suppose, like everybody else, I by and large I've taken what I wanted from AA. It's all second hand, and that's okay. To say you alone could do it, but you can't do it alone. I like that one as well. And to me, I wasn't really a complete human being. I'd no opinions of my own. I couldn't go anywhere on my own. So today I'm much more a complete human being, and I do treasure that. And this live and let live is important to me, and to me it's important not to impose my will on anybody else, probably because I come from an alcoholic home and there's plenty of that done to me, and you know, I have to grow up and be a complete human being, so it's most important I be my own person. And that's not to say that I can't get help from other people, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm responsible for me. I'm not responsible for anybody else. And I'm still learning. It was a revelation, yes. When I was doing a step 4, and see, I always wanted to be a happy-go-lucky fellow with a big bank account. Of course, I was penniless, and I discovered I was screwed up to the eyeballs with fear and worry. So I was actually the complete opposite person that I wanted to be. And I heard someone saying, you know, we have to let go of the old ideas. And I remember thinking, well, I've no complaints about that anyway. It got me nowhere. So I surrendered, I suppose to say. There's no point in surrendering to booze to contest life. So I surrendered as much as I could to the booze and life and the whole lot, and it sort of had a different effect than what I thought. I'm definitely more of a complete human being than I ever was. I mean, I enjoy being sober. It's still a novelty. I don't fear drinking, but at the same time, I know it's only a daily reprieve. And for me, you know, I was told, you know, to get sober, really, you have to grow up and get responsible. And any situation I'm in, you know, what AA has taught me to do is, you know, look for the most mature, responsible thing to do. But the marvellous thing about that is, if I do that, I can close the book. I don't have to carry it around with me, you know. Like I say, I'm still learning. It's still a novelty to be sober. I've never lost that. I don't. I suppose the chap at 12 step, he had a big influence in my life. He had great balance in his life, but it never seemed to rub off on me. But I suppose, like, they talk about a spiritual awakening, and to me, part of the spiritual awakening anyway is the fact that I'm attracted to what's good for me now, as opposed to the old me. When I was drinking, I was only attracted to something if it was bad for me, or immoral, illegal, or fattening. So to me, that is like a psychic change to want what's good for me. And I suppose maybe my age has something got to do with that too. But this is a marvellous fellowship. I always remember the pledge when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA to be there. For that I am responsible. And I like the idea that it's anyone, not just AAs, but I suppose to me, if I'm always aware of that, I'm somewhat spiritual anyway. But I know what it's like. I lived in my own head until I come into this fellowship. Completely my own head. To the point where this chap knew me when I was drinking, and I was telling him I was coming to London. He says, be careful in London, the traffic goes very fast over there, be careful crossing them roads, because I ended up like a zombie. I was bad with my nerves and depression. And he used to talk about a spiritual awakening. I used to say to myself, if I could only get a physical awakening, I'd settle for that, you know. But action is the key. I try and remind myself of that. Easy does it. That's about the only one I don't have to remind myself of. Because if I done it any easier, nothing would happen. But I still like the Just for Today card and this too shall pass. Different periods, they were very, very important, these things in my life. But it's a simple program, and one thing that means to me is, I don't have to carry much around with me. Good attitudes is the main thing when I leave the house in the morning. But if I set out bad attitudes, I'll suffer, and probably other people will suffer. So I'm a very satisfied customer of AA, and I suppose I must keep in touch. Well, all my friends are in AA, so I didn't choose that. I've nothing against non-members. It's just the way it happens. And I think for me that's a help. It keeps me in touch. And with alcoholics, I don't think we're boring people at all. Someone said the more defects someone has, the more interesting they have, and I think that's true. There's always something happening, never a dull moment. And I like it. I can honestly say I like everything about AA. And people said, their quality of life improves. I never thought that could happen to me, and I never thought that I would really be put my sobriety unconditional. I didn't know what it meant, but today it means, unconditional means there is nothing could make me drink, and that's an inside job. If it's unconditional, it's number one in your life to stay sober, and things happen. But like I heard so many people, even AA says half measures avail us nothing. So gradually it became unconditional, and that's what I like about recovery. There's a start to it, but there's no finish. It's ongoing, and I must keep changing, and there's no big deal about that, because it's an inside job. To me, my priorities is important, because it's something that I discovered in my early days. What was wrong with me? I literally put alcohol first in my life, and then everything else was all mixed up. But the day I decided to rule alcohol out of my life completely, my thinking changed. And something a member said to me, and I latched onto it, and it made sense to me anyway. He says, the pain is when your thinking is off. He says, thought is supreme. If the right thought comes, there's no pain, the right attitudes, everything falls into place. But he says, you can't think your way into good living, but you can live your way into good thinking. and that said a multitude to me. And when I heard all these things first, I suppose I would have liked to been able to contradict, go back a week later and say to that member, oh, you were wrong, but I thought about them long and hard, but they were always right. So after some time in AA, I just, like I said, I threw in the towel. I said, it's the AA way for me. I'm not going to argue or fight anymore. And I was 33 when I came into AA, and I felt very privileged, because after working in the pubs for so long and knowing so many people who probably only just drank their life away, I felt privileged to be in at that age. And because I felt I wasn't too old, I could sort of start again. And like I say, I don't have great hope for the future. And I suppose what I like about recovery is the fact I can, the more I put into it, the more I get out of it. So really, in a way, it puts me in control. And something a newcomer said to me one time, and he had me thinking about it anyway. He says, when you hand over, he says, doesn't God hand it back to you? And I think that's very good. I mean, the way I heard the first 3 steps being explained was, I can't, he can, so let him. And I like that, because I'd see it that way now. You know, the fact that I've no say in life no more than anybody else. There's wars, there's people getting sick, there's all sorts of things happen that people have no say in, and I'm no different. But all I know is when I do things the AA way, I feel a lot better and get a lot better results. And like the chap who 12 stepped me, and it was most important, he said to me many times, the only reason to be in AA and off the beer is for a better life. And he put it very simple to me before I went to AA. He said, the way I see it, if booze is causing you a problem, you stop. If you can't stop yourself, you go for help, you go to AA. He says, and you go there and put the necessary work in your life. And that couldn't be any simpler. So you can call it spirituality, call it what you like, but that was one very practical way it was put to me, which I like. But spiritual, like I say, to me is no big deal, but it must mean some kind of a decent life, you know. I know if I went back doing the old ways, the old attitudes, the old behaviours, I mean, I'd have to feel the same way. And I'm aware, and I only speak for myself when I say this, that AA offered me an alternative way of thinking and living. It's only an alternative way. If I go back, like I say, to the old ways, I'll feel the same and drink. I believe the only thing distances me from drink is by how much I change my attitudes and behaviour, and how much I get spiritual. It says in the big book, I think, it's whether we drink or not is contingent on our spiritual condition. So I must sort of keep changing, which there's no big deal about. I'm one of these, haven't, even when I was drinking I had good intentions, in recovery I had good intentions, but other members, I suppose, put me to shame by the amount of service they do. I mean, I've done secretaries for wild times and chairs, but I felt I've given back really very little compared to what I've got out of AA. And it does say, you know, action is the key, and spirituality to me is it's about practicality. Someone said to me, a member said to me one time, if you are hungry, a half loaf is better than 20 serenity prayers. And I think that's maybe the difference in religion and spirituality. The spiritual person is action. And I have to remind myself of that. But I suppose I'm sort of happy about the fact, if I want to improve my life more, I know what to do, because AA has given me the tools to determine the quality of my own life. And I wasn't, from the day I drank, or probably the day I was born, I believe I was born alcoholic, I was going downhill. Even before I drank with my attitudes, I think I was a recipe for disaster. And with alcohol, I was doomed. And I don't have to be doomed anymore. And I think I've said enough. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.